Hello, hello, my beautiful colleagues and friends. It's Izabela here, and I'm inviting you for another episode of Leadership Roundtable discussions. And we have obviously very important guests here for us to really depict on so many pieces from leadership to current situation, how is to run organization in times of major disruptions and challenges, continue to assist people, and then also figure it out solution and outcomes and times where a lot of velocity and a lot of vitality is going on and simultaneously. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Anastasia. She is executive director of organization that's been around for a while, right, Anastasia? Which is obviously all about 100% life. Organization that is tremendously supporting people, not only prior, but definitely right now during the unprecedented times during the war in Ukraine. So, Anastasia, how are you? Welcome.
Hi, Isabella. It's so nice to be here and to talk to you. As always, it's very interesting and fascinating. And thank you for giving the ground to explain and speak out of what's going on in my home, in my country. And it's very important. Thank you. I'm fine. Yeah. Keep it up.
That's good. It's a great to see that you're doing well, given how challenging and difficult it is, and it's also fortunate that you also have to find yourself escaping and fleeing your country since last time we spoke, because how things are escalating. And I'm glad that you are enjoying as much as you can normalcy of life in Stockholm, Sweden.
Yes. Well, it's hard to call it normalcy because life has changed drastically, and I think it will be changed forever because it's something that you can't just cross and cancel from your life. Wherever you go, you're still always at home with people whom you love and supporting your country as much as possible. So yes, indeed, when we last spoke, I've been in Ukraine with my baby and my mom, and then just I think in a week time, the bombs and missiles started to be more harsh, even in the western part of Ukraine. So there were no safe place where we could stay. And of course, it's being a parent and being a professional, you're always let's say making a decision not only for you but prior for safety of your children, of your family. And I took a decision to flee from home, and now I'm indeed in Stockholm because Stockholm is a quite convenient place to continue work. It's almost the same time zone, and of course it's a huge community which is very supportive, and which also open new opportunities to raise the voice, to bring more attention to the situation on the ground in Ukraine, and to do whatever I can.
That is excellent, and I'm glad that you are having, as you said, a lot of decisions that you made and that are helping you out to continue to be present, which is very difficult, just in normal circumstances, to be young mother and then also leading such an important mission, let alone with everything else that is going on. So, with that in mind, obviously, you had to adjust tremendously your leadership. And do you mind sharing for everyone that are often complain about such a small things? I mean, give them a little bit of reality check, what it means to lead such a prominent, such a large organization that everybody really depends on, their life depends on what you do and how you handle day to day.
Yeah, so basically, I think that's an amazing question because I've been exploring the leadership, especially female leadership, for quite a long time. And for myself, I believe that this is a time, first of all, of team's values, which are forming the leadership. So basically, in our organization, it's not one single person who is only leading. Of course, we have our charismatic chief, I would say, our head of coordination council, who is Dmitro Shirimbey. He is not only one of the most prominent activist, a person who received, one of the first who actually received antiretroviral therapy in Ukraine 20 years ago, who just built all of our organization from bottom up, united so thousands of people, not only in Ukraine, but all around the region. But now he is also let's say, carry on as a military and a part of our prominent army. So, but I also believe that there are so many names who actually create this leadership, but which are not pronounced in, I mean, their names are not known for everyone, but they are there, and they are the platform and the foundation which helps the leadership to move forward and to show the results. So this is the first thing, that in times of war, I don't believe in one charismatic leader who is, let's say, bringing the main solution. I believe in the unity of individual leaders who actually do the change every day, every second, every minute with their actions. Because without them, we are, I mean, we will be struggling like, you know, like a frog in the milk who is trying to do sour cream or something. I also do believe that this is a time of female lead, because what I see, especially as international support, I see so many women who actually stand up, who are doing actions all around Europe, all around the world, who are speaking up about the horrible war crimes in Ukraine, who are supporting, who are raising money, who are bringing more attention, and also political leadership, actually, because when we see a woman who is a leader of a country, we also, I would say, can rely that maybe it's not her personal interests on the first place, but it's actually the well-being of people, the safety of people. And I'm really, I mean, I'm so proud, and so and I feel such a great gratitude for international community who is vocal and supportive to our humble leadership inside of Ukraine, and supporting what we do.
That is brilliant, Sharon, on so many levels. And I love what you just mentioned. It's not always effort up from one person, right? And if we just constantly highlight one person, we know deep down that it's great to use them as a role model. It's great to use them as a great example of what to not only model after, but also what to others can really, how they can step up their games. How they can do more, right? But community is as anything. It's essential in any organization, in any team. So right now, obviously, you are dealing with people that are having hard time, that have their health compromised, obviously, even before the war. And now it's really hard and challenging to get to medication, supplies, and everything to them. And that obviously puts you to be very resourceful in how to augment some of those challenges as well, and not just give up, and not, but to find a way, which I really want to emphasize that, and kudos you for that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Izabela. You know, I was considering, let's say, our way since the beginning of war, and I understood a very important thing, which can be actually, which we want to present to other civil society groups and community organizations, because they are using it and can use it more. Because since the beginning, of course, we are a very big foundation. We've been operating in Ukraine for more than 20 years, and we've been fighting for the lives of people living with HIV and key population groups, the most vulnerable to HIV in Ukraine, since 2001. But as the war started, we deployed all of our capacity in each and every region of Ukraine, and we started immediately to procure health medications for army, for medical facilities, for social workers. We started to deploy our capacity to bring more of the body armors for social workers, so for those who are working on the front line to be protected. So our consideration was not only about like, oh, how we continue our service provision for key population groups, but like, how do we rethink to make it double? So not only to continue the service provision, but also what we can do with our capacity to protect people, to help them with evacuation, to get them necessary humanitarian aid. And I'm not speaking about clothes or food, it's obvious, but I'm speaking about some very complicated things like medications for operations, for surgeries, what I said, body armors or helmets for the social workers and health workers who are working on the front lines. How do we get the electric vehicles, because we have such a huge problem with petroleum on the ground? So how can we be innovative in terms of the solutions? And I think that this collective leadership about which I told you, it's extremely important, because we collect the needs from all over the points of Ukraine. So basically we hear what are the needs from the eastern parts of Ukraine, which is currently extremely affected by the war. And the war, I mean, the hostilities is ongoing, actually. It's not like the silent zone at all. From the southern part, from the western part, and you know, we brainstorm, we think, we come up with some innovations, we risk, but we understand that this is a chance when you do not continue the work, but when you double the work and you really
Yes.
do your maximum.
I love what you also said, looking for additional opportunities, not only to disrupt what you already had in place, do the disruption around yourself, but also how can you expand the services? How can you serve more and do more? Which is really a great example that we can implement anywhere around the world, but definitely during the times of the biggest crisis and the biggest challenges. So with that in mind, I'm curious, you know, obviously, it's now unfortunately been 4 months into it, and it's, for a lot of people, thinks, oh, that's such a short period of time. For you who are experiencing that firsthand, feels like eternity, doesn't it?
It's not even eternity, you know, you just can't understand the track of time anymore, because it's like the whole life, the whole new life. These 4 months is full of death of close people. It's full of death of the best people, actually, who are fighting. I mean, what actually another insight with which I had recently is that the I know the quality is a bad word, but it's really the sense, the quality of people who are dying is very different from who are dying from Ukrainian side, of our best men and women with values, with education, with this desire of life and changes for our country. And from their side, from the side of Russians who are just, I'm sorry, incoming like a meat and dying in thousands of people. And, you know, it's full, this 4 months is full of hatred, but hatred which is not destructive, but otherwise, which is very constructive and very motivated. Like when you understand why you wake up in the morning, why you are actually not at home in your bed, and what you have to do with this. It's also full of love for our friends, for our families, for our children, for ourselves, actually. It's full of dignity. It's full of, I would say, inspiration of what we can do, because there is no boundaries of it. No one actually believed that we will stand more than a week, and we are fighting 4 months, even though we received only 10% of heavy weapons. And I'm incredibly proud of my people who are so full of sense of humor. I mean, maybe you saw, I don't know how international community sees it or not, but in Ukraine we have so many like memes and humors about what's going on. And, you know, it's kind of de-escalation of our emotion when we laugh. And it's such a new life, actually. It's such a new feeling of your personality within it that, yeah, I would say so.
That's beautiful, Sharon. We're here having also David join us. Thank you, David, for being here, as well as Paul. And Paul is sharing, definitely saying how fascinating perspective that is. And it's just super tremendously awesome to have you here with us. And you're right, it's such a great way also when we deal with a lot of challenges and difficulty, how important it is for all of us to, as you said, use a humor as a coping mechanism. Otherwise, it's too difficult and hard to bear. And it's a very, very healthy way to do it. It's extremely healthy way to do it. And you guys definitely do show that, and that you're not only such a large community, as you said, you're not just the community of your organization alone, but all however many millions of Ukrainians are right now there, and that is beautiful lesson for everybody watching, listening, for everybody also thinking, how can we step up our plates? How can we do more? And how can we also share information that we have opportunity to share and things to do? So with that in mind, it's like, what is possible? You're constantly teaching us how much more is possible than we're really actually even thinking about it, or we're really pushing ourselves out of that comfort zone. So speaking of that, I mean, do you mind sharing? I know you have to go through a lot. You've already been so much involved for greater good for your nation, for your country, being involved in many different initiatives for greater good for women and advocate for that. Also, you just stepped in now completely, I feel like, in yet another layer of all of that. And where do you get that courage and conviction and amazing, as you said, passion and positivity, and how do you drive that?
That's a good question, because I think that I'm not alone in this process. If you ask about my personal journey, I would say that definitely my former experience in my education helped me, because I had several executive programs on resiliency and planetary leadership and, let's say, regenerative leadership, which actually helped to form my worldview and the perception of the processes which are currently taking place. I'm speaking about ecological and social crisis, which is ongoing for many, many years for now. So basically, I was quite resilient, I guess, when everything started. But of course, you can't be prepared for the war. You can be a military person, but you can't be prepared for it. It's too heartbreaking, because you are literally losing your people. You're literally losing, and your soil is wounded, your houses are destroyed, and there's nothing that can prepare you for that. But because of the unity with our people, and because of this sense of unity, you feel that even if you're a drop in the ocean, you are very valuable. And actually, if you will just, like be and like crying all the time, it will only do harm for yourself, for your family, for everyone in the community. And I'm super realistic about consequences. I absolutely understand how horrible the trauma, war-related trauma, will be, and not only for military people, like military community, but also for general population, for people who had never experienced violence or experienced in a totally different way. So there are so many challenges ahead of us. So if we will just lose our consciousness now, and we won't be strong at the moment, we won't be able to resist to recovery phase. And recovery phase, which is coming soon after victory, is super important. So I believe that this belief that we are winning, and we are actually winning in all sense, because I told you before that this war is not the war for the territory even. It's a war of civilizations. It's a war of values. It's a war of, I don't know, even faith in your dignity, I would say, in freedom. So basically, I believe that what motivates me the most is actually the sense of unity, the understanding that I need my strengths and I need to care of myself, because I will be needed when we and when, let's say, they will need my knowledge. I mean, it's my people, government, or civil society, or I don't know, just that if I lose it now, then what can I propose further for my country, right? What can I do to rebuild it? So I think such motivation and desire of this sense of home is very important for us. And I have so many friends who actually got back to Kiev. Yes, they both with families, with kids, are not, they are singles, but still they just got back and say, we want to adapt to it, we want to live at our homes, whatever is happening. I have different perception of the situation. I told you that safety of my family is very important for me, so I don't feel safe of going back to Kyiv now. But I totally understand them. It's something that is in your blood, in your veins, when you understand that this is my home. No one actually can, let's say, force me to leave it. But there are so many people who lost their home. And they still are coming back. They don't have housing, but they are coming back to their land. They are ready to live in the how you call it, temporarily housing, like refugee housing. But they are coming back home because they feel it, and it's super important. It's something that you can't explain. It's something even transcendental when you speak about it, because it's not rational. It's just, this is my dignity, this is my home, this is what I love, and those are the people whom I love. And when you just feel it, you have nothing to deny, or nothing to be doubted about. But Izabela, what I wanted to say is that this is not the single story of Ukraine. I told you before that this is a story of the whole world. And maybe now some countries do not feel it as much as we do, but this is not the Russian-Ukrainian war. It's actually the civilizational war, and it will be closer to everyone very soon. For some countries, they already experience it in terms of lack of food, in terms of high prices, in terms of huge inflation, and it's only this time. So everyone should think of it not as something they can be fatigued because they don't want to read news or not. It's something that also can be risk for their safety too at their home.
I can agree more, and I'm glad you mentioned that because we're seeing something that's going to create and continue to create a ripple effect. And if we're just working on things that we're just dealing with on the surface and what we're seeing as the outcomes, right? Reactive to effects versus the true real causes, and what these causes are and what these causes are all about. And from global perspective, it's awful that we have to say, because it's just now starting to affect me here in US, I might want to do something about it. How about we really step up and say, because we're all humans and it's a human life and humanity is the number one priority. As a result, then everybody else win. And as a result, we can really move and make it all the other things magically happening. And as you said, we're also seeing a lot of heroes like, why is gas is expensive? Why is this happening? What, all of those things we don't want, but we're not really understanding or wanted to understand. We're all focusing so much on effects versus going to the root causes. Why is this way? And what can we do for actually why we don't focus on opportunity to make it better, to do something truly to set up foundation that not one nation need, but whole world and other nations, and work hand in hand. When we start overriding competing priorities that are self-serving, all of those things usually catch up with us, no matter what. We're seeing this in corporate world and corporate arena, definitely around Fortune 500. So this is nothing new, as you said, it's no surprise. But it's also tremendously risky, one of the most riskiest situations we're seeing, not because of beginning of 21st century, right? But we're also seeing because of velocity of what this can create and how volatile world is and how fragile everything is and how quickly all of this can shift and change from bad to worse and very, very ugly.
Exactly, you're totally right. It's like a warm bath for our civilization, because we are so used to comfort and ubiquitous services, ubiquitous and abundance in the shops, stores, etc., and we really value it. But it's also the when 20 years ago, the discussion about the climate change and um, Anthropocene, like influence of people on the climate started, and scientists were trying to speak up and say that you have to change your attitude, government, society, businesses, you have to change. And everyone, yeah, we need to change, but still, there's comfort, etc., etc. But when war breaks up, you are not asking anyone like, do you need to change your attitude or not, because it forces you to change. So when I speak to my maybe not friends but peers from the universities, because I did several executive programs in Harvard Kennedy School, in Stockholm Resilience Center, in Klingendal University, and I was like, those are the people who who are very savvy about what's going on, but still they still live in the illusion of the comfort, an illusion of safety. And I'm trying to
Yes.
say, okay, guys, forget about like Russian Ukrainian war. Think if it's like climate crisis. It won't ask you if you're rich or poor, if you're black or white, if you're a woman or man, or I don't know, any other representative of community. It will just strike you. That's it. That is what happening with us. We were not asked. We didn't have privilege. No one of us were like privileged to leave or to stay. There were regions which were so affected, like Mariupol. Mariupol is an extremely beautiful city near the sea. It was amazing. People were proud that they were living in Mariupol, that they are Ukrainians. And now there's no city at all. It's like 90% of the city is absolutely destroyed. Thousands of people died. And when I'm trying to say that, do you know about the losses in Ukraine of civilians? I'm sorry. And people like, yeah, we hear it in the media, but we don't actually know how many people are this. And I'm trying to explain that only in Mariupol identified 20,000 people. Those are only identified. So basically, it's something that actually I believe that everyone should use for their own purposes, because this is something that is not about Ukraine again. It's about all of us, and we have to change, and we have to do better, and we have to stand up together, and we have to do whatever we can. This is a time to show your individual leadership and not to sit in the corner and pretend that nothing is happening.
I love that call for action to step up and lead and be courageous, because we're seeing lack of courageous leadership everywhere, but we're also seeing lack of effective leadership. And I love how much you also continue to educate yourself. And you're, again, in my mind, with super young, but you're amazingly super talented, super smart, and super accomplished. And it's just such a refreshing to see your generation of leaders like yourself that are rising above all of it and showing what needs to be done and how it needs to be done, because that old needs to transform. Obviously, that's what got us into trouble when we're dealing with different types of mentalities, when we're excusing and accepting and neutralizing certain behaviors, shows how risky game all of this is. And this is, of course, as we always say, it's not about politics, it's not about taking sides. It's about realities that we have to look at the evidence, think for ourselves. It's not about a mass opinion. It's about knowing what you stand based on your own values, based on what matters to you. And are you speaking up? Because one of the things, as you know, Anastasia, has survived the Balkan War and horrible atrocities that happened during that time. And similar situation, I see so many parallels, and it's just so heartbreaking and striking, because it's like I never really thought, and sitting also as part of the Global Coalition for Genocide Prevention and Action. And when people that are being around veterans that come from all of these countries and places where genocide is occurring and recurring over and over again, and wars and conflicts of this nature, and they say, Izabela, and they're in their 80s or 70s, they're like, we're tired. We're really, really tired and deeply, profoundly sad, because what we're realizing, the genocides will never stop.
Yeah.
And that was one of the biggest defeating moments and painful moments to realize with everything that we have, all the knowledge that we possess, we're still going and utilizing and leveraging those methods of mass destruction, not of land and buildings alone, but human mass destruction.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's
Isabel, you're absolutely right, and you've been there. So I mean, you have this historical memory of the war, of your own experience. I guess you witnessed the war crimes yourself, and hearing this is just, I mean, you don't want to perceive it, right? When you hear it from people who also have their knowledge, you just don't want to believe in it. So,
yes.
in some sense, I also have this ideal picture in my mind that our children are much better, and we can actually be those role models which can create a different foundation for the for this world to be, but at the
Mm,
same time I understand that on parallel at the moment we are creating another paradigm. So basically we are enhancing our defense sectors because of the war. All of the countries are trying to rethink, like, how can they invest more in the defense sector, how they develop better weapons, how they be, I don't know, smarter in terms of intelligence, etc., etc. But I really do want to believe that our children are different, and if we play a role model for them with those values of peace, of love, of dignity, of how to stand for your own freedom and protect your people, but also not to want to grab someone's land and someone's lives, I
yeah.
believe that that can make a difference.
I can't agree more. And then that's what I wanted to say. I just seeing the generations ahead of us, before us, being defeated after so many decades of hard work, just tell us it's a time to pick up the ball. And as you said, different structure. And that's why when people want to just restructure thing, but then like we need to completely rebuild and renovate and reestablish, because shuffling around things will not really make a tremendous change. It's just that cosmetics first appearances that looks on surface in a way, but if we're never working deep within on our own individual level, who we are as a humans, as a people, right? And then on the team and on organizational. And that's what I'm seeing also right now. We're experiencing things we never experienced, like a great resignation in the United States, that also it's rippling in other parts of the world. It's the same concept, same principle. We're just trying to, in some cases, make a quick choices, decisions that don't really go deeper. They're not as meaningful. They're not creating impact. And then organizations are wondering why things are not going in the direction they want to and their desire, and why things are backfiring. And on one moment that I also see at one point is human capital. How do we look at it as a human capital, and how do we capitalize on the human capital? So you just mentioned earlier. So do you mind sharing a little bit about that? Because right now, who is doing this is that orchestrated, amazing group of individuals, beside being courageous and brave, that tapping into their own strengths, but also their skills, right? And adding new ones as they go and adjusting their game. But the main thing is, how do you capitalize it? How do you orchestrate all of that?
So first of all, I think it's a question of respect. When you respect every individual on each and every position, and you explain to everyone that their role is so important at the moment, and you actually fight for them. Because being a manager of a big organization, you are not like sitting in an armchair, which is very comfortable. You are always fighting for your people. You're always trying to protect them, to beat for the best conditions of their work. So basically, in our organization, our senior management team actually did such an amazing work. They actually explain to all of the donors community that we have to keep all of the salaries for everyone in each and every region of Ukraine, especially for those who are the most affected by the war. Because I mean, intuitively you have to think like, but if there's like occupancy, or if there's a like hostiles or war ongoing, how do they actually continue their work? But this is the question of the life-saving personnel, of the life-saving services that have to be prolonged afterward. So basically, it's always about the negotiations, which is not led by your personal interest, but by the interest of the group of people whom you represent and whom you actually have to protect for the services to ongo, for your work to be ongoing. So I believe that human capital, which you said, is extremely important. And it's actually in the situation like in Ukraine, in the time of wars, you can see without glasses who is doing what. You don't need any like performance evaluation, or you don't need KPIs to actually see what a person is delivering and how much he or she is delivering. And it's extremely hard because, of course, lots of people had to fled their homes. Not everyone stayed, and not everyone had the access to their computers or to their documents, etc. But I mean, the role of managers and leaders in this situation is not like saying, oh, then you have to go somewhere else and find your job. But it's like to understand how to create the condition for the person to continue the work, how to support the emotional intelligence in this sense, how to actually care about your staff. So I believe that, this new type of leadership for me is always following with empathy and compassion, because without it, it doesn't make sense at all. Because without it, it just some kind of empty business for business. And here, I mean, I'm from a different area, and I've been working for the government and for international organizations and civil society for the last 10 years. So I'm not quite chasing I've never been chasing the profit. For me, profit are people, and I'm trying to capitalize them. I hope that I answered your question in this regard.
Yes, you did, and it's great to hear your perspective, because how important it is to tap into human capital during these times and value. Because as you said, that is the perfect. Because when we chasing the profits, that's where we slip. That's where we get into types of dealings that really can get us where we take away our values, where we take away all of that, and then pretty soon we're so dependent of either someone's resources from global perspective, so dependent of political siding or agendas, where we actually override common sense, when we override right thing to do, when we override what is actually absolutely utmost necessary thing to do. And those are the things that we're constantly seeing challenged and being challenged, but not necessarily effectively adjusted. And I hope that post-COVID, and I hope that this current situation is going to get us there faster, because we have also a sense of urgency, don't we?
Yeah, you're right. You are absolutely right. And I think so. I have nothing even to add to that.
So with this in mind, obviously, what will be one of those things that I know things progressed so much? What would you say for people that are watching, that are listening, that are going to be watching, and what would you say for them to do? It's like, how do you step up in and lead the way, but also how do you take action and do the right thing? How to support you and your organization, your people, support the cause by doing the right thing?
So first of all, I think it's very much important to think of it and to analyze, to try to understand deeper what is going on, not just to say, oh, I'm so sorry for them, or I want war to end. It's not there easy. It's, I mean, it's a huge thing. And I believe that with access to internet, with access to so many actually independent media, everyone has an opportunity to be smarter, to become smarter, to open their eyes, to read and analyze with their own minds. And I believe that in this personal journey of analysis, people will discover so many things for themselves. They will see where they live, what they value, and actually what are the problems are, what are the potential risks and dangers are. And I hope that that will motivate them and provoke them for more bold actions, not only to this is super important to support Ukraine in media, in social media, or even going out for strikes, but also to donate money to support Ukrainian army, to support Ukrainian civilians who in needs, to support people who are coming from Ukraine to European countries or other countries, to try to assist them, not to pity them, but also to say how you can be supportive in this, because I believe that this is like like social cure. When you genuinely helping for others, you actually cure yourself and to find more and more of the answers for yourselves. So I believe that everyone can make an action, have to make an action, and it can start with deeper analysis of the situation, and it will actually uncover a whole new world for many people.
That is so powerful and beautiful, because everybody's on their own journey, right? And then how do you start that, and how do you start exuding that? But again, we need to start somewhere. And now it's a great opportunity because, as you said, these issues are beyond Ukraine, they're global. And in the same time, only way for us to continue not only to restore the peace and harmony, but also to really thrive as a global society from global perspective and benefit of beautiful offerings each one brings to the table. We have to protect that.
You are right. And actually, if I can, I will just share once again a link to our network for our donation programs. We
Please,
report
please.
every month. So people who really wants to donate and support our activities, for instance, they have an easy opportunity for that.
Fantastic. Please feel free to share after we're also done in the comments as well. Others are paying attention and looking at. But I also wanted to take a moment here to really thank you for Paul being here, Arcel, who's also joining you from Stockholm, Marshall Goldsmith, one of the top world trainers and coaches, and then many others, including David. We have some others that are there, but not necessarily commenting, which is completely fine. But it's opportunity also to see, obviously, who is showing up. Obviously, people that are curious, that they care, that they wanted to better themselves, an opportunity for us to learn from each other. So I just wanted to say was been tremendous way to give a new fresh perspective, because everybody wants to hear how to deal on leadership level, but they can't even comprehend how to deal with magnitude of complexities you're dealing with. And any suggestion, recommendation in closing, Anastasia, when you look at now 4 months into it and things are going, what would you say? What is so important? Lessons to your fellow Ukrainians in diaspora, obviously, and Ukrainians in the country that are there 24/7 working on whatever they can to make a positive change and impact, as well the rest of the world.
Yeah. In Ukraine, again, coming back to this sense of humor, we have a phrase which appeared since the beginning of war. I have a superpower, and my superpower is that I'm Ukrainian. And I think that this is something that we all have to realize. Like Ukrainians all over the world, that this is our superpower. This is a huge example of resiliency, of love, of compassion, of unity, of motivation, of bravery and courage to fight for your home, for your life. And I think that in this moment, again, you have a mixture of feeling when you lose the best, when you lose the best people who actually could do so many things in our country, but they died recently. I mean, there were so many news about activists who were 24 years old, young,
Mm.
handsome, healthy, beautiful, amazingly motivated to make changes, who were standing up during the revolution of dignity, and they could do so much better, but their lives were taken by Russians. So I always encourage people to call everything with their own names. What is happening in my country is genocide, and we really need the realization of the global community that this won't end up tomorrow, and we all need to stand up together and feel our superpowers and do stuff.
That's fantastic. That's a great, powerful message. And from there, then our people know and how to lead with an example, so others will can also be prevented of happening. And we also can focus how can we change with everything else that is going on around the world. But we have to have a good representation. We have to tap into their spirit. And I'm super, super thrilled to know so many of you amazing Ukrainians who are absolutely tough and strong and courageous and powerful. And it just said, age is just the number, and seeing that everybody can jump in and do something. I highly, highly encourage you guys to check Anastasia's profile, connect with her, click on her link on her organization, see what she's doing, how you can partake, support, but in the same time, how we can look at the bigger, larger picture. We're super thrilled also to have Anastasia to have her powerful message share during July 10th event that we're having in Ukrainian Culture Center in Los Angeles, where we're also expecting such an amazing group of individuals joining us. So this is just the beginning, and we have to keep this information going, guys, because we're seeing a lot of information getting skewed, and people keep thinking, oh, war is over. In reality, it's not. So we also have to prioritize where we're drawing the media from, what we're listening, what's important, and also how we are making our mark and our impact. So
Yeah,
thank you everyone for joining us, and I appreciate all of your participation. And Anastasia, thank you so much for finding time to be with us today.
thank you, Isabella. Thank you for interesting conversation as always.